The flickering fluorescent lights of the hotel laundry room hummed a dissonant tune, a sound I'd grown to associate with late nights and the smell of bleach. But tonight, that familiar hum felt different, sinister. It was just after midnight, my usual start time for the graveyard shift. I swiped my keycard, pushed open the heavy steel door, and stepped into the humid air, ready for another 8 hours of folding sheets and towels. But something was wrong. In the corner by the industrial dryers, someone was already working. They were wearing my uniform, the same faded blue polo with the hotel logo, the same khaki pants. Their back was to me, their movements swift and precise as they pulled steaming linens from a dryer. I cleared my throat, my voice sounding small in the cavernous room. "Excuse me, who are you?" The figure didn't turn. They just kept working, their shoulders hunched. I took a step closer, my unease growing. "Hey," I said, "who are you?" "This is my shift." I walked over to the time clock on the wall, my heart sinking as I saw it. My name, David Miller, was already clocked in. The punch-in time was 11:59 p.m., just a few minutes before I arrived. My blood ran cold. This was impossible. I was holding my time card in my hand. "Okay, this isn't funny," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Did Sarah put you up to this?" Real hilarious. Sarah was the daytime manager, always pulling pranks, but this felt different. This felt wrong. The figure, finally, stopped moving. Slowly, unnaturally, it began to turn. The first thing I saw was its neck, twisting at an angle that no human neck should. A sickening crack echoed through the room. Then, I saw its face. It was my face. My eyes, my nose, my mouth, but stretched, distorted, like a reflection in a funhouse mirror. Its smile was too wide, filled with too many teeth, and its eyes were black, empty pits that held a terrifying, ancient intelligence. I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. It couldn't be. It was me, but it wasn't me. It tilted its head, that grotesque smile never wavering. A sound escaped its throat, a low, guttural clicking, like stones grinding together. It was a mimicry of my own voice, but warped, demonic. "Time to work." "David," it rasped, the words slithering out of my own mouth. I didn't wait to hear more. I turned and fled, my boots pounding against the concrete floor. I slammed the laundry room door shut behind me, fumbling with the lock, my hands shaking so violently I could barely fit the key. I didn't stop running until I was out of the hotel, out in the cold night air, gasping for breath. I drove straight to my apartment, locking the door and barricading it with a chair. All night, I sat in the dark, clutching a kitchen knife, jumping at every creak and groan of the old building. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face in my face smiling, that terrible, wide smile. The next morning, I called the hotel and quit. I told Sarah I had a family emergency, that I had to leave town immediately. I couldn't tell her the truth. Who would believe me? They'd think I was crazy. I packed a bag, throwing in whatever I could grab, and left town without looking back. 4 weeks, I drove, staying in cheap motels, never staying in one place for more than a night. I was terrified that it would find me. That thing, that imitation of me. I later learned what it was. I was in a small town in Arizona, sitting in a dusty library, when I came across a book on Navajo folklore. I read about the Skinwalker, a shapeshifter, a malevolent witch that could take the form of any animal or person. The book described how they could steal a person's face, their voice, their very identity, and it said they were drawn to places of transition, places between worlds, places like a hotel laundry room in the dead of night. The story described how a skinwalker would study its victim, learning their habits, their voice, their walk, before making its move. It had been watching me. How long had it been there, in the shadows of the hotel, learning to be me? The thought sent a fresh wave of terror through me. What did it want? The book said they sometimes took over a person's life, living among their family and friends, a monster hiding in plain sight. It was clocked in. It was ready to work my shift, to live my life. Years have passed since that night. I've changed my name, grown a beard, and moved a dozen times. I work odd jobs, always for cash, always staying off the grid. I can't risk it finding me. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder about that thing in the hotel. Is it still there? Folding laundry in the dead of night? Did it ever leave? Or did it find someone else to become? I look at my reflection in the mirror now, and sometimes, for a split second, I see it. The smile that's a little too wide. The eyes that are a little too dark. I have to remind myself that it's just a trick of the light. Who's paranoia? But I'm never truly sure. I'm never sure if the face staring back at me is really my own. The worst part is the not knowing. I escaped, but a part of me will always be trapped in that laundry room. Forever clocked in, while a perfect, terrible copy of me walks the earth. And I know, deep down, that one day it might come looking to reclaim the one piece of me it didn't get. My life. So if you ever work the graveyard shift and you see someone who looks just like you, don't ask questions. Don't hesitate. Just run. The cold bit differently that night. It wasn't just the crisp, high desert air of rural New Mexico. It was a deeper, more primal chill that seemed to seep right into your bones. I was a freshman in college, and my astronomy club was having its annual star party. We'd driven hours out into the middle of nowhere to a spot renowned for its dark skies, far from the city's light pollution. There were about 12 of us, a mix of seasoned stargazers and newbies like me, all buzzing with excitement. Our professor, Dr. Eris, had given us the ground rules. The most important one was about light discipline. Once our eyes adapted to the dark, any white light would ruin our night vision for at least 30 minutes. So, it was red light headlamps only. The soft, crimson glow was just enough to see our equipment without blinding everyone. We set up our telescopes, a small constellation of tripods and lenses pointing towards the heavens. The Milky Way was a breathtaking smear of cosmic dust and distant suns, more vivid than I had ever seen. The first few hours were magical. We spotted Jupiter's moons, the rings of Saturn, and even a faint nebula that looked like a ghost in the eyepiece. The only sounds were the hushed whispers of discovery, the occasional click of a camera shutter, and the gentle hum of the tracking motors on the more advanced telescopes. Around midnight, a few people started packing up, their enthusiasm waning as the cold intensified. Soon, it was just me, my friend Liam, a senior named Chloe, and Dr. Eris. That's when the strangeness began. It started with a sound, a faint, rhythmic crunching from the scrubland beyond our little clearing. We all poosed our red-lit faces, turning towards the darkness. Dr. Aris, a local who'd grown up hearing all the old tales, just shrugged it off. Probably a coyote or a javelina, he said, his voice a low murmur. They're curious. We tried to ignore it, turning our attention back to the stars. But the sound didn't stop. It seemed to be circling us, always just at the edge of our vision, a slow, deliberate patrol. Liam, ever the skeptic, decided to be brave. He shined his powerful red flashlight in the direction of the noise. The beam cut through the dark, illuminating twisted junipers and sagebrush, but nothing else. See! Nothing, he announced, though his voice wavered slightly. He swept the beam back and forth a few times before clicking it off. We stood in silence, listening. The crunching had stopped. A collective unspoken sigh of relief passed between us. Maybe it really had been just an animal. Scared off by the light, we went back to our telescopes. I was trying to locate the Andromeda Galaxy when Chloe let out a small, sharp gasp. I looked over at her. Her face, bathed in the glow of her headlamp, was pale. "What is it?" I whispered. She didn't answer. She just pointed, her hand trembling towards the edge of our clearing. My heart hammered against my ribs. I followed her finger, my eyes straining to pierce the gloom. At first, I saw nothing. Then, I saw it. Or rather, I saw the absence of it. One of the large, gnarled juniper bushes that marked the boundary of our sight looked different. It was darker, a solid, unmoving mass. Against the stardusted horizon, it was too tall. It wasn't a bush. Dr. Eris must have seen it too, because he spoke in a tone that was unnervingly calm. "Nobody move," he said, his voice barely audible. "And don't look directly at it." His warning came too late for me. I was already staring, mesmerized by the shape. It was vaguely humanoid, but impossibly thin and elongated. It stood perfectly still, a statue carved from shadow. This is where the real terror began. My headlamp was on, casting a cone of red light. Liam and Chloe had theirs on too. Dr. Unease was fumbling with his gear, his back, to ooze. In the overlapping crimson glow, I could see the three of them clearly. Liam was by his expensive Dobsonian telescope. Chloe was near her smaller Schmidt, and Dr. Unease was a few feet away, near the supply box. 3 people. And me. That's 4. Our red headlamps outlined forebodies. But then, as my eyes darted nervously between my friends, I counted again. Liam, Chloe, Dr. Unease, me, and one more, near the edge of the light's reach. Another figure was illuminated. It was hunched over, its silhouette outlined in the same eerie red as ours, an extra body. It wasn't the tall shadow I'd seen by the juniper. This was something else, something within our circle. My blood ran cold. It hadn't been circling us. It had joined us. I opened my mouth to scream, but the sound died in my throat. It was a stranglet squeak. Liam saw it at the same moment. His face went slack with disbelief, then contorted in pure fear. "Who's that?" he whispered, his voice cracking. The 5th figure slowly straightened up. It was wearing clothes similar to ours, a dark hoodie, jeans, but its movements were all wrong. They were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet being controlled by an unskilled puppeteer. Its head tilted at an angle that would have snapped a human neck, and though its face was hidden in the shadow of its hood, I could feel its gaze on me. A wave of nausea washed over me. The air grew heavy, thick with a smell like wet fur and decay. Dr. Unease spun around, his own headlamp catching the figure. "Get in the car," he hissed, his professional calm completely gone, replaced by raw panic. "Now. Leave. Everything." He started shoving us towards his old Suburban, his hand shaking violently. No one argued. We scrambled, tripping over our own feet, abandoning thousands of dollars of equipment without a second thought. As I fumbled for the car door, I risked one last glance back. The figure was taking a step towards us. It was slow, deliberate, and then it did something that will haunt my nightmares for the rest of my life. It raised a hand to its face, and from beneath the hood, a voice whispered my name. But it wasn't a human voice. It was a perfect imitation of Chloe's gasp from moments before, twisted into a mocking, drawn-out syllable. "Jake!" We piled into the Suburban, slamming and locking the doors. Dr. Unease jammed the key into the ignition, his hands trembling so badly it took him 3 tries to get it to turn. The engine roared to life, and the headlights blazed on, flooding the clearing with brilliant, beautiful white light. For a split second, the figure was caught in the beams. It wasn't wearing a hoodie. Its head was too large. Its skin looked like stretched, leathery hide, and its eyes glowed with a faint, malevolent red of their own. It shrieked, a sound that was part animal scream, part grinding metal, and recoiled from the light, scrambling back into the darkness with impossible speed. Dr. Unease stomped on the gas. The Suburban fishtailed on the dirt track as we sped away, leaving our telescopes and the star party behind. No one spoke for the entire 2-hour drive back to campus. The silence was heavier than any words could have been. We just stared out the windows, seeing that lanky, red-eyed form in every shadow the headlights created. When we finally reached the safety of the city lights, Dr. Unease pulled over. He turned to look at us, his face. "You will not speak of this to anyone," he said, his voice grave. "What you saw tonight, it's not meant for the world to know. Some things are best left in the dark." We never went back for the equipment. The astronomy club listed it as stolen. We never had another star party in that part of the state. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone, I think I can still hear that sound of faint crunching, like something walking on dry earth, circling just outside my window. And sometimes, I hear a whisper on the wind, a perfect imitation of a familiar voice, calling my name from the darkness. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've had a similar encounter, share it in the comments below. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. See you next time. The city lights usually gave me comfort. A twinkling sea of humanity stretching out below my friend Leo's top-floor apartment. But that night, they just made the shadows in the parking garage seem deeper, more absolute. It was past midnight, and a thick, unnatural fog had rolled in, swallowing the tops of skyscrapers and muffling the familiar city hum into an eerie silence. I was only up there because I'd left a bag of those ridiculously expansive, artisanal salt and vinegar chips in the back of Leo's vintage Mustang. A silly reason to be out so late, I know, but once the craving hit, it was relentless. I waved goodbye to Leo at his apartment door, promising to be right back. The elevator ride down to the parking garage, which was also on one of the top floors of the sprawling complex, felt unusually long. The air grew colder with each descending level, prickling the hairs on my arms. When the door slid open, the silence was the first thing that hit me. It wasn't just quiet. It was a dead, heavy void. The automatic lights, usually so quick to flicker on, stayed dark, leaving only the dim, sickly orange glow of the emergency exit signs to guide me. My footsteps echoed unnervingly on the concrete as I walked toward the far corner where Leo parked his prized Mustang. The fog was even thicker up here, swirling in lazy, ghost-like tendrils around the support pillars. It clung to everything, making the air damp and heavy in my lungs. I pulled out my phone, its flashlight beam cutting a weak, lonely path through the gloom. There it was, the sleek, dark green muscle car, looking like a sleeping beast in the mist. As I got closer, a strange noise cut through the stillness. It was a faint, rhythmic tapping. Tap. 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 It sounded like someone drumming their fingernails on metal, slow and deliberate. I froze, sweeping my light around. The garage was supposed to be empty. Leo was the only one with a reserved spot on this level. My heart started a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and pathetic. The tapping stopped. The silence that rushed back in was somehow worse. I told myself it was just the building settling, or maybe a loose piece of pipe dripping. Paranoid, I just needed to grab the chips and get back to the warmth of Leo's apartment. I reached the Mustang and peered through the driver's side window. The chip bag was right there on the passenger seat, a beacon of normalcy in this creepy scene. I fumbled for the keys Leo had given me, my hands slick with a sudden cold sweat. As I inserted the key into the lock, I heard another sound. This time it was a low, wet, guttural click, like someone clearing their throat, but wrong. It was too deep, too resonant. It came from the other side of the car. My hand froze on the key. I held my breath, straining to hear. Was someone hiding? Playing a prank? It had to be a prank. Slowly, I backed away from the door, keeping my phone's light pointed toward the front of the car. I began to circle around the hood, my sneakers squeaking softly on the damp concrete. The fog was so dense, I could barely see the far wall. As I rounded the front bumper, my light caught something. Two somethings. Two pale, glowing orbs, floating in the darkness about 7 feet off the ground, just behind the Mustang. They weren't lights, they were lies. They blinked, slowly, out of sync with each other. A wave of pure primal fear washed over me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My mind screamed at me to run, but my legs were locked in place. The eyes stared, unblinking now, burning into me from across the short distance. Then, the thing they were attached to began to move. It unfolded itself from the shadows behind the car. It was impossibly tall, its limbs long and thin, moving with a disjointed, twitchy grace that was utterly inhuman. It rose to its full height, its head nearly scraping the concrete ceiling of the garage. It wasn't a person. Its skin was the color of old parchment, stretched tight over a frame that seemed all wrong angles. Two sharp joints bending in ways they shouldn't. It had no discernible face, just those two luminous, predatory eyes. A low whistle escaped its lipless mouth, a sound that vibrated in my bones. It mimicked the tune of a song that had been playing on the radio in Leo's apartment just an hour before. It was a perfect, chilling imitation. That's when I finally broke. I didn't scream. The sound was trapped in my throat, a choked, silent sob. I just turned and ran. I sprinted back the way I came, my lungs burning, my feet slapping against the ground. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear it behind me. It wasn't running. It was loping its long limbs, covering the distance with an unnatural, terrifying speed. The sound of its claws or whatever it had scraped against the concrete. A dry, scratching noise that echoed the frantic beating of my own heart. I fumbled for the elevator button, hammering it with the palm of my hand. "Come on! Come on! Come on!" I gasped, risking a glance over my shoulder. The thing had stopped about 50 feet away, standing perfectly still under one of the flickering emergency lights. It tilted its head, a gesture so eerily human it made my blood run cold. Then, it opened its mouth, and a voice came out. My voice. "Forgot the chips," it said, a perfect, mocking mimicry of my own tone. "Going to be right back." The elevator door slid open. I threw myself inside, frantically stabbing the button for Leo's floor. As the doors began to close, the creature took one long, deliberate step forward, its form seeming to warp and stretch in the dim light. Its eyes, those awful, glowing eyes, were the last thing I saw before the door sealed shut, plunging me into the safety of the brightly lit elevator car. I collapsed against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. My reflection in the polished steel was a pale, terrified stranger. When the doors opened on Leo's floor, I scrambled out and pounded on his door, screaming his name. He threw it open, his face a mixture of confusion and concern. I practically fell into his apartment, slamming and locking the door behind me, babbling incoherently about what I'd seen. He tried to calm me down, thinking I was having some kind of panic attack. He even offered to go down to the garage himself to prove nothing was there. I grabbed his arm, begging him not to go. To convince him, I pointed to the security intercom screen by his door, the one that showed a live feed of the parking garage entrance. The screen was grainy, but the image was clear. Standing just at the edge of the elevator bay, partially cloaked in the swirling fog, was the tall, gaunt figure. It wasn't moving. It was just standing there, looking directly up at the security camera. As we watched it frozen in horror, it slowly raised one of its long, spindly arms and waved. It was a slow mocking, human-like wave. Then, it turned and dissolved back into the thick, unnatural fog, leaving nothing behind but an empty, silent parking garage. We never got the chips back. Leo sold the Mustang a week later. He couldn't stand the thought of going back down there. I still have nightmares about those glowing eyes, about the sound of my own voice coming from that thing. Sometimes, when it's late and the city's quiet, I think I can hear a faint tapping sound outside my window, and the low, whistling tune of a half-forgotten song. I've learned that some cravings just aren't worth it, and I never, ever go into an empty parking garage at night. Thank you for listening. Follow for more stories that will keep you up at night. Back in 2007, during the surge in Iraq, I was a Marine stationed in Ramadi. We called it the Devil's Playground, and for good reason. The days were a furnace, the nights a chilling void, and the fighting was constant. But the enemy we knew wasn't the only thing that haunted that city. There was something else, something ancient and malevolent, that moved in the shadows of the crumbling buildings. Our patrol base was an old, shelled-out government building on the outskirts of the city. We had a sniper overwatch team, Calcine Hunter, set up on the roof. These guys were the best, rock steady, with eyes like eagles. One night, a sandstorm rolled in, thick as pea soup. Visibility dropped to near zero. Radio chatter was tense, everyone on edge. That's when Hunter team called in. Their voices were strained, tight. They were seeing movement, not just one or two figures, but dozens, moving through the storm with an unnatural speed and silence. The thermal optics should have lit them up like Christmas trees, but they were just cold, dark shapes against a slightly less cold background. It was impossible. Nothing alive in that heat is cold. Our platoon sergeant, Gunny Miller, got on the radio. He was a seasoned vet, seen it all twice. He told Hunter to confirm targets. The reply was hesitant. Gunny, they're not human. They're moving on all fours, but they're too big. Way too big. Silence on the net. The wind howled outside, rattling the window frames. Then, a new sound cut through the gala, high-pitched, chittering like 1,000 insects, but deeper, guttural. It echoed through the empty streets, and every hair on my body stood on end. It was a sound of pure wrongness. Gunny ordered a lockdown. No one in or out. He sent a fire team, including me, up to the roof to reinforce the snipers. Climbing those stairs, my heart hammered against my ribs. The air grew colder with every step, and that chittering sound was louder up here, seeming to come from all directions at once. When we burst onto the roof, we found the two snipers. Tough Dash as Dash nails recon Marines, huddled behind their sandbags, weapons pointed into the swirling dust, their faces pale under the green glow of their night vision. "Where are they?" our team leader asked. The senior sniper just pointed a trembling finger. "Everywhere." I looked through my own NVGs. He was right. Dark, lanky figures were darting between the ruined buildings. They moved with a jerky, disjointed gait, their limbs too long, bending at angles that defied anatomy. They'd scuttle on all fours like spiders, then rise up on two legs, impossibly tall and thin, their heads turning in sharp, bird-like movements. They never made a sound with their feet. Even on the rubble-strewn ground, we watched, frozen, for what felt like an eternity. They seemed to be searching for something, sniffing the air, their heads tilting as if listening to a frequency we couldn't hear. One of them stopped directly below us. It locked up, and even through the grainy night vision, I swear I saw its eyes to points of faint, predatory light. It opened its mouth in a silent scream, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Then, one of my squad mates, a private named Casey, couldn't take it anymore. He let out a small, terrified gasp. It was barely audible over the wind, but every single one of those creatures snapped its head in our direction. Simultaneously, in perfect, horrifying sync. The chittering stopped. The silence that followed was worse than any noise. They started to move towards our building, not running, but flowing over the ground. A wave of darkness converging on our position. We heard scratching sounds from the walls below. They were climbing. Gunny Miller's voice crackled over the radio, ordering us to engage. The words were barely out of his mouth when the first one appeared over the edge of the roof. It was skeletal, wrapped in what looked like dried, leathery skin. Its limbs were elongated, ending in dirty, talon-like claws that scraped against the concrete. Its face was a nightmare stretched, vaguely humanoid mask with hollow sockets and a lipless slit for a mouth. We opened fire. The sound of our rifles was deafening. The creature recoiled, but not like it was hit. More like it was annoyed. It let out a piercing shriek that felt like a needle in my ear, and two more scrambled up beside it. The fight was chaos. They were incredibly fast and agile, dodging and weaving between our shots. When a round did connect, it didn't seem to do much. They'd stumble, then get right back up. We weren't fighting insurgents. We were fighting demons. Downstairs, we heard the barricaded doors and windows begin to splinter. The whole building was under assault. I was reloading behind a concrete barrier when one of them leaped over it. It landed right in front of me. Its cold, dead eyes staring into mine. Its stench was overpowering, like grave dirt and rotting meat. It raised a clawed hand, and I thought I was done for. Suddenly, Gunny Miller was there, emptying his entire magazine into the thing's chest. It staggered back, shrieking, and toppled off the roof. Gunny grabbed me. Fall back to the stairs. Now, we retreated, firing as we went down into the building. We sealed the roof access door just as they started pounding on it. The entire patrol base was a war zone. The things were breaking through the windows, pouring into the lower floors. We fell back room by room, setting up fatal funnels, throwing every grenade we had. The battle raged until the first hint of dawn, And then, as quickly as they had appeared, they were gone. The sun's rays touched the horizon, and the scratching, the shrieking, the pounding, it all just stopped. We did a head count. We had casualties, but miraculously, everyone was alive. The building was a wreck. The strangest part? There were no bodies. Not a single one of the creatures we shot, just shell casings and the lingering, foul smell. The official report called it a coordinated ambush by a large, unusually aggressive enemy force. They explained away the weird thermal signatures as equipment malfunction due to the sandstorm. They never mentioned the unnatural movements, the impossible anatomy, or the bone-chilling sounds. No one would have believed it, but we knew. Everyone who was there that night knew we didn't fight men. After that, no one volunteered for night watch. We'd sit in the dark, listening to the wind, praying it was just the wind. Sometimes, on quiet nights, you could still hear it, faint and far away. That insect-like chittering on the edge of hearing. A reminder that in the oldest places in the world, there are things much older and more terrifying than war. We left Ramadi eventually, but a part of me never did. It's still there, on that rooftop, staring into the dark, waiting for the cold shapes to start moving again. It was supposed to be a fun, late-night adventure. Just me, my friend Leo, and the thrill of a geocache hunt deep in the woods. We'd done this dozens of times, but never this far out. Never in a place with so many local legends whispered about it. The cache was called the Forester's Secret, and the last person to find it had left a cryptic note online. Don't go after dark. The woods have eyes. We laughed it off. Of course, we were experienced hikers, not superstitious kids. The air grew heavy and cold as we ventured deeper, our headlamps cutting sharp cones of light through the suffocating darkness. The GPS on my phone was our only guide, the little blue dot inching closer to the treasure icon. Leo was ahead, his breath pluming in the chilly air. "Should be just over this ridge," he called back, his voice sounding a little too loud in the dead silence. That's when the first sound reached Yusa. Soft snap of a twig, somewhere off to our right. We both froze, listening. Probably just a deer, Premet had told myself. But the silence that followed was different. It was watchful. We kept mobbing, a little faster this time. The GPS now showed we were only 50 feet away. That's when we heard it again, closer. A rustle in the undergrowth, followed by a low guttural sound. It wasn't an animal I recognized. Leo nervously joked, "Maybe it's Bigfoot coming to help us find the cache." But his laughter was strained. I felt a primal fear prickle the back of my neck. Something was wrong. "We're here," I whispered, my eyes glued to the phone. The GPS showed the cache was directly on top of our location. We swept our lights around, searching for the hidden container and old ammo box, according to the description. We checked behind rocks, in the hollows of ancient trees, under thick ferns. Nothing. "This is weird," Leo mumbled, his voice trembling slightly. "The GPS says it's right here." He was right. I looked at my phone again, and a cold dread washed over me. The cache icon was gone. In its place, a new marker had appeared, a little arrow, and it was moving. Slowly, the arrow swiveled on the screen, as if reorienting itself. It pointed away from us for a second, then swung back, locking on. It pointed directly at Leo. We stared at the screen, then at each other, our faces pale in the glow of our headlamps. "What the hell is that?" Leo stammered. Before I could answer, the arrow on my screen moved again. It slid from Leo's position directly to mine, hovering over the little blue dot that represented me. My heart hammered against my ribs. The GPS arrow pointed directly at my chest. Then came the whistle. A high, thin, piercing sound that mimicked the tune Leo had been whistling earlier. It came from the darkness just beyond our lights. We snapped our heads in its direction, but saw only a wall of black. The whistling stopped, replaced by a voice, a distorted, mocking whisper that sounded like a recording of my own voice saying, "Probably just a deer." That's when we saw it. 2 points of light, low to the ground, reflecting our headlamps. They weren't the eyes of a deer or a coyote. They were too far apart, and they glowed with a sickening, intelligent yellow light. They blinked slowly, and then they began to rise, higher and higher, until they were well over 6 feet off the ground. A tall, impossibly thin silhouette began to take shape against the trees, its limbs long and jointed at unnatural angles. It took a step towards us, and the sound it made was like bones grinding together. It wasn't walking, it was unfolding. The whistling started again, but this time it was Leo's nervous laughter, perfectly mimicked, echoing through the trees. We didn't scream. We couldn't. We were frozen in pure, absolute terror. The creature tilted its head, a gesture so unnervingly human that it broke the spell. We turned and ran. We didn't look back. We just crashed through the undergrowth, branches whipping at our faces, our lungs burning. Behind us, we could hear it keeping pace, not with heavy footfalls, but with an eerie, silent speed. We could hear our own panicked breaths being mimicked, thrown back at us from the darkness. We heard my name being called in Leo's voice, and Leo's name being called in mine, desperate and pleading. "Wait up! I'm hurt," it cried, sounding exactly like me. But we knew it was a trick. My phone was still clutched in my hand, the screen a beacon of our terrifying reality. The arrow was still there, relentlessly tracking me, moving as I moved. It was a predator's targeting system, and we were the prey. We burst out of the tree line and sprinted across the open field towards my car, fumbling for the keys. The sound of the doors unlocking was the loudest, most beautiful sound I had ever heard. We threw ourselves inside, locking the doors just as a heavy thud slammed against the driver's side window. I didn't dare look. I just jammed the key in the ignition and slammed the gas. The tires squealed as we shot out of the dirt parking lot and onto the main road. I drove 4 miles, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, before either of us dared to speak. Leo was sobbing quietly in the passenger seat. I finally risked a glance in the rearview mirror. The road behind us was empty, but my phone, lying on the center console, screen still lit, told a different story. The arrow was gone. In E.T.'s place, the geocache icon had reappeared, and next to it, a new comment from a user we didn't recognize. It said, "Thanks for the game. I'll be waiting for you to come back and play again." We never went geocaching again. Some secrets are meant to stay buried, and some woods are meant to be left alone. Because sometimes, when you go looking for something in the dark, you become the thing that gets found. The first time I saw them, I tried to rationalize it. A trick of the light. Maybe. The desert plays games with your eyes, especially as dusk bleeds across the mesas, painting everything in shades of bruised purple and deep orange. I was out near the eastern edge of the ranch, documenting strange magnetic fluctuations for a research project. The sun was a sliver on the horizon, and the air was getting that sharp, cold bite. Too Italiano. That's when I noticed it, a silhouette, standing perfectly still on the ridge above me. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't shaped like any person I'd ever seen. It was long, unnaturally so, with limbs that seemed just a little too thin, a little too angular. It was just a black shape against the dying light, completely devoid of detail. I raised my binoculars, my heart starting to thud against my ribs like a trapped bird. As I focused the lens, it was gone. Not like it had run or ducked. It was just not there anymore. I swept the ridge, my breath misting in the cold. Nothing. Just rocks and gnarled juniper trees. I told myself it was fatigue. That's what you do out here. You explain it away because the alternative is too terrifying to consider. The next few days were quiet. The equipment registered its usual bizarre spikes. The air hummed with that low, almost subsonic frequency that permeates the entire property. But I saw nothing else out of the ordinary. I started to relax, chalking up the silhouette to a tired mind. I was wrong. It was the 4th night when things truly escalated. A full moon hung in the sky, washing the landscape in an eerie, sterile light. I was in my small, reinforced observation trailer, reviewing sensor data. A sudden flicker on one of the perimeter cameras caught my eye. I rewound the footage, There, at the edge of the tree line, just beyond the reach of the security lights, was a figure. It was the same long, spindly shape. It was just standing there, watching the trailer. My blood ran cold. I switched to the live feed. It was still there. Motionless. A sentinel of shadow. I grabbed my high-powered flashlight, the kind that can cut through the thickest darkness, and my hand trembled as I unlatched the trailer door. The metallic click sounded like a gunshot in the dead silent night. I stepped outside, the cold air hitting me like a physical blow. I could feel its presence. You know how you can feel when someone's staring at you? It was like that, but 1,000 times more intense. A suffocating pressure that made the hairs of my arms stand straight up. I aimed the flashlight towards the tree line, my thumb hovering over the switch. My mind was screaming at me to get back inside, to lock the door and wait for sunrise. But a different part of me, the part that brought me to this cursed place, had to know. I took a deep breath and flicked the switch. A blindingly bright cone of light shot out, illuminating the trees, the dirt, the dry brush, and nothing. It was gone. The space, where it had been standing just a second before, was completely empty. I swept the beam of light back and forth, my heart hammering. There was nowhere it could have gone. The ground was open. It couldn't have run that fast, not without making a sound. It had simply vanished the instant the light touched the spot. I retreated back into the trailer, my mind reeling. This wasn't a trick of the light, this was real. Over the next week, the sightings became more frequent and more brazen. It was never just one anymore. I'd catch glimpses of them on the cameras. 2, sometimes 3, dark figures, standing on the ridges overlooking my position. They never did anything. They just watched. Their stillness was the most terrifying part. They stood like statues carved from night itself, observing me with an unnerving patience. I started feeling like a specimen in a jar. I stopped leaving the trailer off the dock. The psychological toll was immense. Every shadow became a potential threat. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. Sleep offered little escape. My dreams filled with elongated figures and the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. I was documenting everything, every sighting, every feeling of dread. But I knew no one would believe it without concrete proof. One evening, I decided to try something different. I set up a thermal camera alongside the regular one, pointing at a spot on a nearby ridge where they often appeared. My theory was simple. If they were living creatures, they had to have a heat signature. If they vanished from sight, maybe the thermal camera could still track them. The sun went down, and the familiar knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Hours passed. Nothing. Just the usual desert nightlife showing up as warm splotches on the thermal monitor rabbits. Coyotes, a stray deer. I was about to give up for the night, my eyes gritty from staring at the screens, when it happened. On the standard camera, a figure materialized on the ridge. It didn't walk into frame. It was just suddenly there, as if it had stepped out of the fabric of the night. My breath caught in my throat. I glanced at the thermal monitor. Nothing. The spot where the figure stood was as cold as the surrounding rock. It had no heat signature. It was a void, a hole in the thermal landscape. My scientific mind struggled to process the information. How could something be physically present, but thermally invisible? It defied the laws of physics. As I stared, mesmerized and horrified, a second figure appeared next to the first. Then a third. All of them dark, silent, and colder than the grave. They stood in a line, looking down directly at my trailer. A wave of pure, primal fear washed over me. This wasn't just observation. It felt like a judgment. I felt an overwhelming urge to communicate, to scream at them, to ask what they wanted. But my voice was trapped in my throat. I could only watch. Then, as one, they turned their heads slightly. It was a small, synchronized movement. But it was the most terrifying thing I had ever witnessed. It was as if they were acknowledging that I could see them, that the game was changing. They knew I knew. And then, one by one, they faded. Not quickly, like before. They slowly dissolved into the darkness, like smoke caught in a breeze, until nothing remained. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty ridge, the silence of the ranch pressing in on me. I had come here seeking answers about the unknown, but all I found were more questions, and a terror so profound it has imprinted itself onto my very soul. I still don't know what those shadow creatures are, but I know they are still out there in the dark spaces of that ranch, watching and waiting. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoy these stories from the ranch, make sure to follow for more. Stay safe out there. I lead weekend backpacking groups for a community recreation program, mostly beginners who want to learn basic navigation without getting lost in the backcountry. On October 29th, we camped near a shallow creek in Bright Hollow, a narrow valley where the cliffs funnel sound strangely at night. The water level was low after a dry season, leaving long stretches of exposed creek bed. We set up camp in a clearing a few yards from the water, the tents arranged in a loose ring around the fire pit. By the time the sun faded behind the ridge, the air felt heavy and the breeze carried a faint metallic smell that did not fit fall weather. We cooked dinner and made small talk until the fire dropped to embers. The sky turned black in a way that made the treetops look like jagged silhouettes against a void. The creek gurgled quietly behind us, a slow bubbling sound like someone breathing just under the surface. The group crawled into their tents one by one, and I stayed up a little longer, checking tomorrow's route on a crumpled topo map. The night felt too quiet, like the forest was expecting something. It started with a single footstep, then a second, light, fast, and impossibly even. I sat up and listened. Something was running near the creek. The sound looped around the campsite in a wide arc, moving so quickly that the cadence blurred into a soft rhythmic patter. I unzipped my tent and stepped out. The fire still glowed faintly, enough to paint the clearing in a dull orange haze. The footsteps continued, circling us like a perfect track runner at full sprint. At first, I thought one of the group had gotten up to use the woods, but no one moves that fast on uneven ground. The footfalls had no stumble, no slip on the rocks, just a steady pattern like someone had memorized the exact placement of every stone around us. I called out softly to see who was awake. The running didn't pause. It didn't slow. It simply changed direction, shifting from the left side of camp to the right, as though the runner cut across the creek without breaking stride. The creek bed should have slowed anyone down. The stones were slippery, the mud thick in places, but the runner's pace remained unchanged. The sound narrowed until it passed just inches from the outer tents, then widened again as it looped back into the dark. One of the campers unzipped their tent and whispered, asking what was happening. I told them to stay inside and keep calm, though I felt anything but calm myself. Minutes passed. The running never faltered. The pattern held a rhythm that felt unnatural, like a looping recording played through the trees. After a while, the footsteps began to shift pitch, growing heavier with each pass, then lighter again, as if the person running changed size mid. At one point, the steps were so heavy they shook the tent fabric. The next moment, they were soft as raindrops. Around midnight, the runner began circling faster. The sound became a blur, so quick it was impossible to tell where the footsteps began or ended. Something moved behind the fire pit, scattering ash. Then the runner passed behind my tent with such speed that the guy lines trembled. The forest around us stayed absolutely still except for that sprinting shape looping the clearing endlessly. I shined my flashlight toward the creek. The beam caught nothing but wet stone and the glimmer of shallow water. Yet the footsteps ran across the creek bed, splashing lightly, then returned to dry ground with the exact same tempo as before. No human could keep that pace without collapsing. No human could run that silently on rock. As the night stretched on, a strange sensation settled over the group. Every time the runner passed close, the air pressed in, cold and dense, like a wave of pressure rolling across the clearing. The campers whispered inside their tents, voices shaking. I told them again to remain inside. Deep down, I wondered if light would stop whatever circled us, but every time I raised my flashlight, the runner drifted just beyond reach, staying in the shroud of darkness like it understood exactly how far the beam stretched. Around 3 in the morning, the sound changed. The footsteps widened, spacing apart so far that they no longer sounded like a person running, more like something leaping between invisible points on the ground. Long, powerful landings, deep impacts in the creek mud. Several campers cried quietly when one jump shook the ground near their tent. I felt my stomach twist. Nothing that size should move that quietly. The sprint eventually slowed, not to a walk, but to a drifting circular pattern that sounded like someone probing the edges of the camp. The pacing stopped near the far tent. Then silence. Thick, absolute silence that made my ears ring. For the rest of the night, nothing moved. No wind, no creak sound. Even the forest stayed frozen as if holding its breath alongside us. When dawn finally came, the first bird call sounded almost violent. After hours of quiet, the campers emerged, one by one, pale and shaken, clutching their packs as if ready to run. The air felt normal again. Light filtered through the trees in soft gold streaks. For the first time in hours, I heard the creek bubbling naturally. I walked to the creek bed to look for tracks. The mud told a story the night had only hinted at. At first, the prints were human, bare footprints pressed into the sand in tight looping circles around the campsite. Then they grew longer. The toes stretched into thin points. The arches deepened as though the feet bent in ways they shouldn't. Farther down the creek, the strides widened to impossible lengths, each print spaced like the landing of a horse at full gallop. The final set of tracks veered into the trees, long, bowed impressions that dug several inches into the soil, spaced far too wide for any human or animal native to the ridge. The trail ended abruptly at a fallen log. Nothing beyond it, no sign of creature or person, just silence and a faint metallic smell still clinging to the morning air. When I returned to camp, the group was already packed, shoulders tight, eyes scanning the woods. No one wanted breakfast, no one wanted to talk. We left the creek without looking back, but as we walked up the trail, the quiet broke once. A single stone shifted behind us in the creek bed, sharp and precise, like the first step of someone preparing to run. I've been on countless search and rescue missions in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, but none of them haunt me like the one from last fall. We got a call about a hiker, a young man named Alex who'd been missing for 2 days on the notoriously confusing Blackwood Trail. The weather was turning, a thick, cold fog rolling in, making visibility almost zero. It was the kind of fog that swallows sound, making the forest feel dead and empty. We split into teams. My partner, Dave, and I took the western ridge, a section known for its treacherous terrain and sudden drop. Hours passed, filled with nothing but the crunch of our boots on damp leaves, and our calls for Alex echoing into the void. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, but the forest floor was already pitch black. We were about to call it a night when we heard a faint cry for help. It was weak, raspy, but it was definitely a human voice. We followed the sound, our flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. We found him huddled at the base of a massive, ancient cedar tree. It was Alex. He was pale, shivering, and his eyes were wide with a kind of terror I'd never seen before. He was wearing just a thin jacket, completely soaked through. "Thank God you found me," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I got so lost. Something's out here." Dave checked him for injuries. Miraculously, apart from being dehydrated and suffering from exposure, he seemed physically unharmed. But his mental state was a different story. He kept looking over his shoulder, flinching at every snap of a twig. Told Jose. Then followed. He described a sound that wasn't quite an animal and not quite human. A clicking, chattering noise that seemed to come from all directions at once. We tried to calm him down, telling him it was probably just the forest playing tricks on him, that fear and exhaustion can make you see and hear things. He just shook his head, his eyes bleeding. "No, you don't understand. It was watching me. It mimicked my name." That sent a shiver down my spine. We've all heard the old stories, the local legends the tribespeople whisper about, but you push them to the back of your mind on the job. We gave Alex some water and a thermal blanket and started the long trek back to base camp. The journey was tense. The forest, which usually felt familiar, now seemed menacing. Every shadow looked like a lurking figure. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. Alex was quiet for most of the walk, but his fear was contagious. He'd occasionally stop dead, his head snapping around, listening intently. still here," he'd mutter. "It's following us." Dave and I would scan the trees with our powerful flashlights, but we never saw anything. Just endless, dark woods. The air grew colder, and that strange clicking sound he'd mentioned. I swear I heard it once, far off in the distance. I told myself it was an insect or a bird. Dave said he heard it too. When we finally saw the lights of base camp, a wave of relief washed over us. The other teams were back, and the camp was buzzing with activity. We got Alex to the medical tent. Immediately, the medic, a seasoned professional named Sarah, started working on him. Dave and I went to debrief our supervisor, recounting the details of the rescue. We were in the middle of our report when a scream ripped through the quiet of the camp. It was Sarah from the medical tent. We all rushed over, our hearts pounding. We burst through the flap to a scene of chaos. The medical equipment was thrown around, the cot was overturned, and Sarah was backed into a corner, her face white as a sheet. But Alex was gone. The back of the tent was slit open, a gaping hole leading out into the blackness of the forest. "Where did he go?" our supervisor yelled. Sarah was trembling, unable to speak at first. She finally pointed a shaky finger towards the tear in the tent. "It wasn't him," she stammered. "I was checking his vitals. His eyes, they changed. And his voice. He asked me where the rest of the hikers were, the ones who get lost alone. But it wasn't his voice. It was deep, guttural. Then he just unfolded. Unfolded. That was the word she used. She said his limbs stretched, contorting in ways that weren't humanly possible. The joints popped and cracked, and his form shifted in the dim light of the lantern. Before she could even scream, he had sliced through the tent and vanished into the night. We organized a perimeter search immediately, but it was a futile effort. We were searching for something we didn't understand. The tracks we found leading away from the tent were strange. They started as boot prints, then morphed, the stride lengthening, the prints becoming deeper, larger, and ending in something that looked more like a canine's paw, but much, much bigger. The real horror set in the next morning. A call came over the radio from a ranger station miles away, near the park entrance. They had found a hiker. It was dazed, disoriented, and suffering from hypothermia, but alive. He said his name was Alex. He'd managed to find a small cave to shelter in after getting lost 2 days ago. He had no memory of being found by us. My blood ran cold. If the real Alex had been in that cave the whole time, who or what did we bring back to our camp? What did we lead out of the darkness? We rescued Italiano. We gave it warmth, water, and a safe escort out of the deep woods. It walked with us. It talked with us. It was studying us. I never went back to the Blackwood Trail. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I can still hear that faint, raspy voice calling for help in my mind. And then I hear the clicking sound, and I wonder what it's mimicking now, and who it's waiting for on that lonely trail. We didn't rescue a lost hiker that night. We were lured in. We were the bait, and we let a nightmare right into our world. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying encounters. Stay safe out there. I do field maintenance for a telecom contractor out of Las Vegas. Most of my jobs are dead relay sites in the desert. The kind the government stopped using but never took off the map. On Yuli 9th, I was sent to decommission Relay Station 19B, west of Amargosa Valley, listed as non-powered since 2013. The old guy at the service depot told me that one still lit up at night, even with the mains. Cut, I told him. Lights don't burn without power. Then I drove out alone. The station sat in a bowl of sand and scrubbed, one square concrete building behind a leaning chain-link fence, a single tower beside it. Heat shimmered over everything. The sky was flat and pale. The generator outside was rusted open, tank bonadry. The main feed from the pole was cut and wrapped. Inside, the racks were dusty and cold. No fan noise, no indicator lights. I wrote the coordinates in my log, checked the junction box, checked the breaker panel. Everything said 0. Outside the window, the floodlight over the door kept shining, white and steady, like it was pulling light from nowhere. I told myself some tech before me must have left a battery in the ceiling. I followed the light's cable through the conduit. It ran into the wall and ended in a sealed box with nothing connected. My meter stayed flat. I went outside, unplugged the only live cord I had, and looped up. The floodlight did not blink. It was brighter now, casting hard shadows across sand that had no footprints but mine. Then the radio on my belt hissed. Just static. Then a clipped voice. 19 Bravo. Active. I checked the handset. The transmit light was off. I said as calm as I could, "This is maintenance. Identify." The radio repeated me back in my own voice. The air pressure dropped like weather moving in, but the sky stayed clear. The insects stopped. Even the wind against the tower cables cut out. The smell in the building went from dust to sharp, like hot copper. I walked back inside and found the dead equipment racks alive again. Grain LEDs blinking in sequence. A tiny printer I hadn't even noticed started spooling paper. Every line said the same thing. Technician on site. Awaiting input. Then one more line appeared without a keystroke. Input received. Outside, I heard the metal casing of the floodlight turn. When I stepped to the door, it was already pointing at me. I told myself it was motion detection. I stepped left. The light followed smooth. No lag. I stepped right. It tracked again. The radio cracked. Relay 19. My voice sighed exact tone, exact breath, ready to receive. Then a second voice repeated it half a second later, like something was practicing. My shadow on the floor stretched long, but a head on the shadow tilted when mine did not. The hum in the walls rose until I felt it in my teeth. That was the point where there was nothing left to explain as a fault. I turned for the truck. The light chased me across the yard, hot on my shoulders. The tower vibrated like something heavy had climbed it. I looked back, once. A shape stood right under the fixture, gray in the glare. Too tall, arms too long, head tipped to the side like it was listening through the concrete. It lifted one hand and pressed it to the wall. The floodlight flared white enough to wash the desert flat. For a second, my vision doubled. One of me was running for the fence. One of me was still standing in the doorway. By morning, the desert looked ordinary again. Wind had filled in any marks around the tower. The generator was cold. The breakers were still open. The floodlight was still on, burning like grid power was pumping through it. On the wall by the door, someone had written in chalk, "Maintenance complete. Jota, Mercer, Dois e 17. Amy Tatis." My name. That is how I write my M. I'd spent the whole night outside that room. I took a photo on my phone. In the photo there was no chalk, just a pale smear shaped like a hand on the inside of the concrete. Back at the office, I marked the station as decommissioned and noted a lighting anomaly so I didn't have to invent power readings. The supervisor shrugged and said desert sites get weird capacitance. He scheduled a follow-up visit with another tech. That tech called in once, at the highway, and then never again. When they found his truck, the engine was idling and the gate was open. The floodlight was still burning in full sun. The report said he probably walked out into the heat. Nobody put my photo in the file. A week later, my home scanner woke itself at 2:17 a.m. The channel was quiet for a second. Then a voice came through under the static. It was mine, tired and flat. "Relay 19, it said. "Ready to receive." Then, just behind it, something else said the same thing. A hair too slow, like it was still getting used to the words.